Do you know what I think's really interesting about the whole did Jesus sin thing? And it's like, I don't think he sinned.
No.
But he said he was tempted in every way
Right.
that humans are tempted. So the only thing that can be tempted are your desires. So I'm like, so clearly Jesus had human desire,
100%.
but the fact that he had human desire doesn't mean that human desire was
Sinful.
inherent and sinful.
Right.
Yeah. But ours is because we're broken humans. If I've ever seen sin, I just saw it.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't see that. Lol.
This was like this.
It's basically... This is basically what happens when Jess is trying to have a serious conversation with me. And she looks over and I'm doing that. and then she's just deeply disappointed. Hey, welcome to the Victory Podcast. We're continuing our conversation on healthy, true biblical masculinity. And in this conversation, we discuss the Sabbath. What does it mean to rest, to truly rest, like soul rest? And why is that important for men? And it's a great conversation, and we hope you enjoy. I want to start this podcast off by talking about the new Deadpool movie. You guys saw it on the weekend. What did you guys...
I did not see it on the weekend.
Deny it? What?
What? Isn't this about masculinity? I'm just kidding.
No, sorry, just wanted to throw that out there as a
Out
bit
of
of a
my
joke.
rating
No, they didn't see it.
range. Appreciate folks.
Yeah, no, healthy
Out of
masculinity.
my holiness range.
Deadpool is not an example of healthy masculinity.
Wolverine, though. I mean,
Wolverine, he's he's got some troubles, you know.
Just a few.
does.
Logan, man.
He's cool. I grew up with Wolverine as my favourite. Anyway, just saying that. Cyclops was cool too, though, right?
No.
No. Oh, no.
Not a fan of Cyclops.
What about Gambit? Gambit was cool.
That's weird. The guy's weird.
Jeez. Who was your favourite X-Men? Who was your favourite X-Men?
Oh, we just
It was
shut
Storm, wasn't it?
No, probably Wolverine.
Wolverine's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Anyway, it's off to a great start. I think it's off to the perfect start. I think this is how we should start all podcasts. It's just chin
Favorite
wagging.
X-Men?
Yeah, it's
Character?
stuff. Just talk about stuff.
He-Man.
Do you remember
Oh, He-Man. Wow.
Biker Mice from Mars?
What?
Cartoon.
You know what?
Fantastic
I remember-
cartoon as a kid.
I
Biker
remember
Mice from
Danger
Mars.
Mouse.
Danger Mouse?
Danger Mouse. You remember
Yeah.
Danger Mouse?
Totally.
Man, that mouse was next level.
Danger Mouse.
Oh. Is that how it goes?
Dude.
Whoa, that's perfect.
Start of the pod.
It's a theme song.
Starting to rain outside.
It's getting pretty
Cozy-
wild out here.
Cozy pod.
Wild and woolly.
Wild and woolly. Cool. Here we are.
Here we
Next
are.
pod.
Come on.
Good chat last one. We talked about work, purpose, identity, which, I mean, you could unpack for a very long time.
I could.
And
So we found that out last episode.
no, I didn't say you. I think all of us could. But we
Whoa,
want
now
to...
you can really talk on.
We really got Nate started, hey?
Once you get it started. It's all good stuff. I mean, I just think we can't cover it all in one podcast.
That's right.
But we want to kind of springboard off that. Work.
Yes.
I mean, most of our life is working. Let's be honest, working and sleeping. That's basically most of our life. But we talked about purpose, and we wanted to kind of go into talking about rest, which I think
Yeah.
it's a healthy balance. I think it's something that's obviously in the Christian world we're talking about a lot more. How to be healthy, holistically healthy. I think it's something still maybe in the world that they've started. I think since COVID, actually, a lot of people have realised, we need more rest. But I feel like COVID happened, everyone realised they needed more rest, but then we've gone back to the normal pace of life. You hear people say, I kind of liked parts of COVID. Obviously people who didn't get sick are saying that. But they're talking about the slowdown of life. But this podcast, we want to talk about rest.
Yeah.
And coming out of work, what we just talked about before, I think it's a really good conversation. But I'd love yeah, I'd love to open up the conversation with you guys around rest. Why is rest important? Why is
It's
rest
not.
important? It's not.
I just wanted to be controversial.
Genesis 1.
Just
God
be
rested from his
disagreeable
works.
to everything.
Spice it up a little
Just
bit.
disagree with everything.
Throw some
I disagree.
grenades in there. Yeah, Dad.
Is rest important?
Says
Yeah,
the guy's never thrown a grenade because he just ripped the pin out with his teeth. You know how hard those things are to rip out? Oh, man.
What?
You just lost 3 teeth. Yeah.
Just lost some masculinity with that little underarm pop over there as well. Like, what's that?
You just killed yourself.
Oh, dear. What
Throwing
are we
that
talking
grenade.
about?
We're talking about rest.
Rest.
Right.
We're talking about rest. And I think we're all realizing the power of rest, the importance of rest. Obviously, we're going to talk from a biblical point of view.
Yep.
Why is rest important
Yep.
to our journey? And I guess we're in the context of talking about true and healthy masculinity. And out of the last conversation, we talked about purpose. And I think this includes women, but men are really, we love working. We're driven to work hard.
Right.
I think a lot of us are like that.
I'm
But,
gonna.
I mean, maybe we're not. Are we? Maybe we're not. Maybe not all men are that driven. Now that you think about it, I don't know if I'm that driven. I like sitting on the couch watching stuff.
Well,
How
same.
fun's that?
Dude, absolutely.
So not everyone's
does tick
type
a
A
box.
workaholic.
Watching the game.
Yeah, I think that's important to articulate that, not everyone is that type A personality, but everyone has a version of themselves that is on purpose.
Yes.
Um,
And watching TV isn't necessarily rest.
yeah, we can get to that.
Ooh.
I know that I made a bit of a joke out of saying it's not important before. Just wanted to throw it in there.
That it was a joke.
But if being on purpose is not of value in your life, then resting well isn't either.
That's good.
So they go hand in hand.
Their value goes hand in
Their
hand.
value goes hand in
Great.
hand.
Great.
Because both are bigger topics
Yeah.
than how we initially approach them, and they complement each other in definition. So last pod we were saying purpose is not your job.
Yep.
In the same sort of way, we're like, when we say rest is a far bigger thing. It's the balance to purpose activity, but we so often limit it and go, I work, so I get a weekend, I get a day off.
Yeah. This is a good spot to start.
So
actually.
the concept of rest, like proper biblical rest, isn't important if you don't have a concept of purpose. If all you're living is, I go to work,
Yeah.
then all I want is a day off, or I want an escape, I want a holiday, I want to go here, I want to get away. None of those are biblical rest. And so if we're going to talk about biblical rest, then I'm going to underpin it by saying it's of no value to someone that's not approaching it by living their life with a biblical purpose.
But if you just
It's of
work,
some value.
but if you work all the time,
Sorry, I'm trying to be a bit like controversial.
yeah. But if you work all the time and you still value not working,
Yes, but that's not biblical rest.
All right. Well, let's
No,
start.
true.
I see what you're saying.
That's
Let's
true.
just talk about rest in general, and then we can go into discussion about biblical rest.
he's literally throwing the grenades in. I'm liking it. This is great.
Because I think you're right. People work hard, and it's great to cease working, and it's people rest naturally. That's why we have weekends. But I know what you're saying. We're talking about two different rests. There's the rest that's the cessation of activity,
Yes.
which is helpful and great, and we all get a physical rest.
Absolutely.
But then there's biblical rest, which is rest for our soul. It's rest for the inner man, which
I'd go
you can
even-
cease activity, but the inner man might not be
I
resting.
would go even different in my definition.
Okay, let's have it.
I would say that when we're talking about biblical rest, it is the cessation of biblical work. We have rest for our soul in Jesus all the time, but we are, as last episode we talked about being on purpose, whether that is within the job you have, where you get 9 to 5, 5 days a week, or 7 to 3 or whatever it is, constructs of your job, and then you're like, now I'm not doing my job, that's my day off. Biblical work is the accomplishment of those two purposes that we're given in Scripture.
Sure.
So biblical rest is the cessation of that work, which we have to understand is actually way bigger than our job, as we talked about last there. And therefore, we have to approach the idea of biblical rest as a far bigger concept than just our day off from our day job.
Sure.
And I think this is where I can get frustrated with people when I want to talk to them. I go, so let's talk about your Sabbath, which is a biblical topic around this idea of rest.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, I have a day off. And I'm probably frustrated because this was my, I remember historically people would try to teach me about rest and I'd be like, oh, I'm good. I have a good weekend. I don't answer emails. But I learned differently along the way because I was still engaging in certain activities that fell under the banner of biblical work. And so I wasn't actually resting in the way that my spiritual man needed rest. Yes, I was stopping my job, but that's not all of my work. And so I was actually still engaging in work whilst taking a day off. I wasn't resting.
Yeah.
And they're very different. I think across the church at the moment, we see a lot of people that take a day off, but that aren't resting because they are very different concepts.
All right, let's delve into that a little bit more because I think, we've got a lot of things happening here. We've got weekend rest.
Yep.
So obviously, like a lot of people work to live for the weekends, work to live for that holiday, and I guess that speaks to they don't see their job as a purpose, as part of their purpose, or they don't see their job as something their purpose can be outworked through. It's just like it's a means to an end. I need to do this to get money, to enjoy myself, and the real goal of their life is I want to enjoy myself. And so the driving, the driver of their life is enjoyment.
True.
It's not purpose. So we talked in the last episode that the driver of our life, like Jesus.
Yes.
But we should be driven by purpose. That's healthy. And so when it comes to rest, it's not just to enjoy, it could be to enjoy ourselves, but it's not just the cessation of activity, but it might include that.
Oh, you're looking for me, you like to input? Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
I'm thinking out loud too.
I'm trying to be like, I'm not going to interject. Don't interject. Don't interject.
I mean, I think, and I'm willing to be wrong, and this will be controversial. Yes. And this will get controversial, maybe not to other people, but maybe here. But I think we can rest without Sabbath. I don't think we need Sabbath. I don't think Sabbath is necessary for rest. I think it's a great tool for rest and we can use it and it's there to be used. So I want us to talk into Sabbath, talk about Sabbath, and talk about rest. And I can already see in your face that I've thrown a big one out there.
It's huge.
I was more laughing about the joke you made in the intermission, and I'm like, I can't go back there.
Oh, okay.
I can't go back there.
But I want us to.
Do you mean that you don't need a Sabbath day in order to operate in proper rest?
I'm kind of playing devil's advocate.
Okay. Or are you talking about because there is a Sabbath rest that exists for believers.
Every believer.
That is perpetual.
That's what I'm talking about. There's that rest.
That is a soul rest.
Soul rest.
In the position of our soul or spirit.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what is it? Hebrews 11, Hebrews 12?
Hebrews says
13, something
the rest
like that.
is found in Jesus. And
right.
That's that rest of, I'm okay with God.
Yep.
So the weight of striving for okayness, or I'm right.
Very good.
I'm right with God as I am, and so it's that, so, and that speaks to obviously Hebrews written to Jewish Hebrews, but it's in reference to the law, which was a constant striving for them to be right with God.
Great.
So that is speaking into our status as we are now, forever, as believers, you're right with God.
Right. Yes.
Just actually relax into that.
Very good.
That is medicine for your soul.
100%.
And yes, that is definitely a rest that is talked about in Scripture. But it's not.
But it's called a Sabbath rest.
Yes.
Well, yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's what I find mind-blowing. Like there exists a Sabbath rest for those who believe in Christ.
Yeah.
And it's a state, like a perpetual offering to us of rest for our souls. Yeah, and I haven't gone into the theology of it today, but
well, I just pulled out my Bible.
Be better, man.
yeah, good idea. Just do better. But
Do better.
But yes, like you're right. It's written to the Hebrews. They were coming off the back of a lot of religious activity to get God's approval.
Yep.
You know, so therefore I don't have to do that. Like you said, like that's so good. That's so helpful for the listener. Like I'm okay with God.
As long as you are. Like as long as you have a relationship with Jesus.
Through Christ, I'm okay with God. And there's no more striving.
There's no works
to
you can
be
do.
okay.
Yeah.
It is finished. Like it's done. I'm justified.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's that
in the eyes of
righteousness
God.
pursuit.
It's exactly right. And that is powerful for our soul.
He's pleased with you.
But that's not.
Did you receive that?
Well, that was one of my first revelations of identity stuff was like, he's pleased with me before I have to do anything.
Yeah.
And there's a level of rest internally
Totally.
that is so powerful for us when we realize I'm not, and this is what I said last pod about like I was trying to get something that I already had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to get this acceptance and this love and this, and God's like, I already gave it to you.
So there's rest from identity.
Yes,
Well,
rest
yeah,
for the
it's-
pursuit of value and the
Right
pursuit of
standing with
right
God.
standing
Rest comes
with
out
God.
of our
You are
identity.
as
That's so
right
powerful.
with God as Jesus is.
Yes, wow, man,
Which we can't actually fully wrap our minds around. But
it's true.
So we can have that rest. We have received that rest as children of God,
yep.
despite whether we have a Sabbath day in our life or not,
Totally.
right? So we
Correct.
have
Absolutely.
that
Correct.
Yes.
foundational soul identity rest.
Internal
That's one
rest.
thing. We have rest for our soul. But then the Sabbath is another component to
Yep.
rest in our life.
Right.
I think some of the confusion and complexity in this is that in Scripture, certainly, the same word is used. That Sabbath rest is used in both talking about the rest that our soul now has because Jesus has made us right with God and we have right standing, and the Sabbath, which was the cessation of work connected with your purpose, and stop and just enjoy what you have actually put your hands to do.
great.
Yeah.
Right.
The same word is used, and so there is this argument: do we have all that rest in Jesus? Is Sabbath a New Testament?
Yeah.
Well,
I think, there's that argument, right?
Yeah.
And I think for anyone listening that's like, Sabbath, what's that? Like, what the heck does that mean?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, that's
Shabbat.
well, that sounds like a weird thing. Shabbat. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. I said that earlier, and I'm going to say they won't
Worked
put it
out
in the
so
pod.
much
Keep it
better
in the
earlier.
pod. Come on. It's not offensive. Who's got pipes out there? Jeez. Anyway, but maybe you've got a pipe. That's cool. All right. No,
like a lead pipe.
Bring
no
back the
shade
pipe.
on
Like a
pipe.
lead pipe.
People. Bring back pipes. There's I'm going off on a tangent here, but there's this guy on the internet on the YouTubes, and
In the vortex, down the vortex.
he's like a
somewhere.
coffee genius. His name's Chris Hoffman, something Hoffman.
I thought you were going to go with like Vlad. Or
No,
something.
but anyway, he's great about coffee. Anyway, he invented kind of a joke, but it's a real thing. He called it the bripe, which is like a coffee pipe. So
What?
it filters coffee in the shape of a pipe and then you can sip it. So weird.
That's
but so cool
bizarre.
at the same time. Bit of a joke thing.
dude, Christmas.
Google it, bripe.
Christmas.
So cool.
Christmas is coming, guys.
Everyone's getting a
Christmas is
bripe.
coming.
It just landed on
right,
Dave's
sorry.
list.
People know this about me. I just know a lot about weird stuff that's not, I don't need to know about. So there you go. But for those who
Right.
don't know anything about Sabbath, like let's go back from the beginning and talk about quickly what it is, right? So
Yeah.
in Genesis 2, God rested, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So it says that by the seventh day, God had finished the work he'd been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy because on it, he rested from all the work creating that he had done. It's crazy. He blessed a day. Like a day was blessed as holy.
Yeah.
And then
There
from
is something
that,
special on that.
that's where, you know, God's chosen people, the Jewish people throughout the Old Testament, they had the Sabbath, which was enshrined in the 10 Commandments. Like the Sabbath is in the 10 Commandments as the Sabbath
Observe
meaning
the Sabbath,
Shabbat,
keep it holy.
which means to stop,
Yes.
is fourth in the 10 Commandments. So it's up there with like, don't murder, don't
Right up there.
go
Honor your
sleeping with other
parents.
people's wives, you know. And rest.
Don't covet your neighbour's
which is pretty full on. Yeah.
donkey.
Donkey? Yeah, don't steal stuff. And so there's this list of important things, and it's like, and make sure you keep the Sabbath day, keep it holy, which someone's lost it over here.
It's gone.
So the Sabbath day was a holy day the Jewish people would stop doing, and they still do.
Yeah, I mean, they probably took it a bit too far.
And then they took it to a religious extreme,
Right.
Yes.
where it became like a rule and it was a hard thing more than anything, and they were trying to please God with their works. And then Jesus comes along and starts breaking rules on the Sabbath.
Yep.
And he's like,
Like a
well,
boss.
the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath.
Which I just pick up on a tiny little thing there. Jesus didn't say it's no longer applicable.
He didn't.
Right.
At no point does he say, now that I've come, don't rest
That's right.
because you get rest in me.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
True.
Because again, these are two different components here.
Right.
He actually says it's like it restores the value in that statement to what Sabbath originally was, and he's like refined the value because it's still important.
That's great.
And I think that's super key to realize that actually Jesus didn't come and cancel out. Yes, he broke the legalistic rules around it because it was actually turning it into a weight and a work and a strive, and it was difficult. And he's like, no, it's actually there for
It's a benefit. It's a blessing.
enjoyment
Yeah,
and ease
great.
and value to your life, and it's for you. And I think if we just, no matter where you are on the journey of having a Sabbath, having a day of rest, not a day off from your job, but an actual day of rest, I think it's really important that Jesus says, hey, this is something that has been constructed in the fabric of creation for your benefit. And when we as humans are like, I don't need that, there's a sense that we're actually saying, I don't need something that God said will benefit me.
Well, let's unpack what's the difference then between Sabbath and having a day off? Like, isn't my Saturday? So, all right.
Oh, it could be. It totally could be.
What's the difference? What makes the difference between got my Saturday day off? I'm going to do whatever. I've got my day off from work. Whew, this is good. What's the approach? What's the difference between that being a day off, being restful, and then Sabbath? What are the difference between a day off and Sabbath?
Because I could jump on a freight train.
Dude, well, that's true. But I really love how you define, like, Nate, you and work, right? Because you talk about different elements of your home life that, like, mowing the lawn and gardening and other elements of work that we feel like we have to do on a day off. And that kind of doesn't mean it's a day off. You haven't actually rested from all work. You've just rested from your job, and now I'm doing other work. Like if you've got a side hustle, or you've got a social media thing that you're on to earn money, or some kind of extra thing, and you use your day off to do that, well, that's not a Sabbath, because you're resting from your job, but you're not resting from work. So like. You love to garden, and that's restful for you, but you don't love to mow the lawn. That's work.
Yeah, it depends. Yes, this has been part of a journey of asking myself, how do I actually engage in the rest that Jesus says is good for me?
Right. Right.
Firstly, though, I have to make sure I'm engaged in the purpose God's given me.
Yes.
For, like, if I'm going to consider a form of Sabbath, I have to make sure that I am engaged in purpose-driven work 6 other days.
Could you say, though, if someone's like hectic busy in their job and they're like, I don't know what my purpose is, or I don't know what my identity is, like, hey, and they're a Christian, hey, well, Sabbath's going to be a really great thing for you to slow down and find those things with Jesus. Like, it could still be a really powerful tool, right?
Yes.
You don't have to have those two things nailed to enjoy proper biblical Sabbath rest.
Yeah, it's not like Sabbath is unlocked after you complete the levels of
identity and purpose.
Yeah, that's true.
And now I can enjoy biblical Sabbath rest.
I guess I'm saying that to come against the sense of
level unlocked.
Well, I have my Sabbath, but like we should live 6 out of 7 on purpose. Like the goal is not this completely slow life where every part of our life is just so slowed down. I'm never going to be busy. I'm never going to be on hustle. No. We should be on the hustle 6 days. And I say that not you should be at your job 6 days, because we are talking biblical work, the creation and formation of the kingdom, bringing beauty, like
making disciples.
Me improving my house, right? I actually see that as a component of kingdom work. And this has just been part of my journey in realizing that I engage in a lot of things that are actually purpose-driven, that are not my job, but still fit in the banner of kingdom work.
Yeah, right.
Making disciples, bringing reigning and ruling,
cultural
subduing the
mandate.
earth, right? They're bringing order to chaos,
totally.
right? So I should be on that hustle 6 days a week. Now, 3 of those might be in a job. 3 of them might be doing other, second job. Like there's components in that, but I'm on hustle 6 days a week for my kingdom purpose. That 7th day, whenever that is about stopping that kingdom work and enjoying what God has given us.
Right.
The model is as God did. He created for 6 days.
Yes.
And I like to think about what I'm doing in my life. I'm creating for 6 days. I'm cultivating family. I'm building disciples. I'm constructing a home and a life and all of these things are a part of that for 6 days. And then I give myself permission one day to sit back and enjoy what I've got.
Great.
Enjoy the family I've cultivated and try not to be so intentional and just enjoy who we are in that moment.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's healthy for your soul.
It's healthy for my soul.
Because God designed, like we see in Genesis, that's what we just talked about, there's like a pattern of rest throughout Scripture that He was built, that He's trying to show us is healthy for us. And what you're trying to say is like, there's no point living 6 days a week for yourself, not on kingdom purpose, just living for yourself, earning money, like just being self-centered, like having a self-focused life and then going, well, I need my Sabbath this weekend. Like it kind of feels a little bit out of whack.
I just need more me after I spent so much time on me.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and that's kind of what you're getting at a little bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's
a bit out of order.
I'm just trying to take the concept of Sabbath away from the level of just job and day off. We shouldn't put Sabbath in that conversation. If you're going to have a conversation about Sabbath, it has to be in the context of kingdom work, which is bigger than just job. And that's where it finds its value, because the rest of our week is about creating and all of those things. And so we should there finds a place for the day to stop. And like Rachel and I talk about it as enjoying who God's given us and enjoying what God's given us. So no, I'm not striving to make my house that little bit better that day. I'm learning to be content. And so these are all the things that then surfaces in you. It's not escape, it's enjoy. And I think when we live from the level of just, I'm in my job all the time, day off becomes escape. I want to escape my busy life.
Yeah.
You're not resting biblically if you're escaping.
Yes.
You're not stopping to enjoy what God's given you.
You're trying to get away from it.
Because, and so there are some major differences. You go back to the question you asked, are you trying to escape or are you trying to enjoy? What's your approach to rest? Because the journey, and the second thing I would say is for that guy who's maxed, and we're talking about taking a day, and it's like, that's so impossible. Constructing, we're always constructing our life. And sometimes you have to start constructing a new room in your life, which takes time.
That's good. Yeah.
And it might actually take you 1, 2, or multiple years to construct a progressive gap to stop and enjoy.
Reshape habits. Like, it all takes
healthy
time,
rhythms.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
I know it's taken you a few years.
Absolutely.
Certainly taken us a few years. You're sort of earlier in the journey in terms of pushing out the walls a little bit to find the space.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I was one of the first people out of, like, all of us, I reckon, to start reading some of John Mark Comer's stuff on Sabbath.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's sick. And I was talking about Sabbath, and people were like, what, Sabbath? That's Old Testament, blah, 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 blah. But now I feel like I've been one of the slowest to uptake the actual practices of trying to implement in my life. Because it's hard. It's very hard. I'm a family of 5.
Yeah.
I don't have the luxury of, like, in my mind, this is how I'm processing it at the moment. Like, I want to be able to Sabbath. I want to be able to rest, have the rest that the Sabbath offers. But I'm like, man, I don't see where I can fit that right now.
I'm tired on my day off.
Right? Yeah. I've got jobs to do on my day off.
Right.
That's the only day I can do them. There's no other day for me to do those jobs. So, like,
yes.
When we're trying to find a different way of doing Sabbath that might not be like, oh, here's this whole day.
Yep.
And I wouldn't say I've been unrested for the last 30-something years of my life because I haven't had a Sabbath. I just see the Sabbath as like, this is a really cool, important thing that's probably going to really aid my journey.
I think that's a really healthy way to frame it because it's true. Like, for the last 30 years, you haven't been unrested because you haven't had it. But to be able to articulate that there's probably something that's going to be good for me that I don't have.
I probably haven't been my best because I haven't had it. Maybe.
You know, where Jesus says, this is for you.
It's
right. Evident that there's some value in there for us.
Absolutely.
So it's worth exploring to be like, well, if I did have this, what might actually...
And I think it's important to acknowledge that it's way more important in our current context of the life that we find ourselves in Western culture. Like, I think, you know, maybe if I was living on a farm, like, and life was slow, I probably might not need this tool of Sabbath necessarily, right?
Unless you're a farmer, because you're probably working your tail off.
You're probably working your tail off. But
I would say if we see Sabbath only in the frame of stopping, then maybe. But if we understand that the purpose of Sabbath is to enjoy, by not having it, we're still missing something.
Yeah.
It's not just about stopping. It's giving yourself permission to enjoy what you've already got, not constantly trying to get more.
Yeah. I guess in a slow life, you probably constantly having the space to enjoy things as you go.
That's probably true.
You know what I mean? Like,
fair.
You know, the Sabbath concept is kind of spread.
It's more smirched.
Yeah. But we live in this like go hard hustle, get more, buy more, have better, get a better home.
Yep.
You know,
borrow up to
get
your
in
limit.
The stock market, accumulate.
Totally. Create hustle.
Yeah, that's right. We live in this culture that is just so
it's cancer of contentment.
Not healthy for our soul. And it is a cancer for contentment. We're not content. We live in one of the most prosperous cultures. And we don't count our blessings. We count the things that we don't have that we wish we could have, right? And, you know, cost of living, I found myself in this basket. Cost of living is a big thing,
absolutely.
Right? But when I'm whinging most of the time, when I'm saying cost of living, I'm not whinging about lack of food. I'm whinging about lack of lifestyle.
Can't afford my gym membership
Can't afford my gym membership. Can't afford that takeaway.
7 subscriptions at once.
Yeah. We fail to see, and like I think that's why maybe in our current culture, it's resurfaced as an important thing because it's needed more now than ever.
Yeah.
I certainly think it has resurfaced. I am not convinced it's resurfaced in a way that solves why it's resurfaced. I think people have resurfaced the Sabbath as an excuse to escape rather than deal with what the Sabbath actually pushes on in the life of a believer.
Right. So you think people are using the word Sabbath and
doing whatever they want.
Well, they're escaping, like you were saying before, they're escaping from work, and they're basically as an escape for entertaining themselves or something. Is that what you're saying? Like people are misusing the word Sabbath. To vegetate.
I'm taking Sabbath on a veg.
Yes, okay.
Right.
That's a form of escape. Yeah,
that's
8 hours
not Sabbath.
Of video games or movies. You vegetate. You're not engaging in an active enjoyment.
I think that's really key. Sabbath is not, even though the literal word means stop, but it means an active thing. You stop work.
Which is not, again,
actively
bigger
enjoy.
than just day off from your job.
It's good.
I have probably been impacted the most by what Sabbath pushes against in my life.
That's great, yeah.
Which,
I think that's good to go into.
Cycles around to therefore what it's bringing into my life, because if it's pushing unhelpful stuff away, that's beneficial, right? We shouldn't always think of beneficial as only bringing in good. Sometimes beneficial is a boundary that pushes back bad. I have found the biggest impact is that by trying to be intentional to take a Sabbath, I am reminding myself that I'm not driven by the system that says I need more.
Right.
That to be satisfied, I need a better house, or I need the garden to look like, yes, there's a beauty in bringing order out of chaos. But if I can't allow myself to sit while there's still components of chaos and enjoy the small elements of beauty or the small blessings I have, then really I'm not okay. I'm still just being driven by an unhealthy something in me that wants more, needs perfection, needs this, that I'm, there's the system of the world that is saying more with less, do more, get more. I think John Mark Comer talks about it in his book, Garden City.
Well, there's Garden City. He talks about Sabbath. Yeah, but then there's this book, Ruthless, Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer, which really goes in depth more with Sabbath. Yeah, right. It's really healthy. But I've got here from one of those books. I'm not sure which one it was in, but the Sabbath is a form of rebellion against the world's constant push for productivity.
I think that's in Garden City. You've had a huge journey around this, though, man.
Yeah, like that concept in maybe Garden City or Ruthless, Elimination of Hurry, or both. That was massive for me because there is this, like you said, there's this constant push, like he says just there, this constant push for more, and somehow more is what's going to satisfy me.
Yeah.
And so therefore I have to keep pushing in my days off. I have to somehow try and work out how to get a little bit more ahead so that I can consume more, get more, have more, because that's going to also be satisfying to me. It's like you said, the cancer of contentment. It's like I'm never going to be content unless I get more. And Sabbath is rebellion against that culture.
Yeah.
Sabbath is rebellion against that system of the world that tells me that more is the only thing. More is what's going to satisfy. And so Sabbath as rebellion is actually, no, I'm content with this. I'm content with what I already created. I'm content with all of this.
Because contentment at its core is enjoying what I have as it currently is.
That's exactly right. Like I love the concept of just training yourself to be grateful for what you have. Like in marriage.
It is a training, isn't it?
It's exactly right. Like in marriage, I'm often thinking about what I'm not getting or what I'm not participating in, or, this thing, or, we have comparison in the world. Yep. We compare our spouses to other. It's like, no, just be grateful. Train yourself to be grateful.
Totally.
And this is one of the beautiful elements of Sabbath, is that actually I'm just training myself to be so content, to be grateful, to be happy, to be joy-filled and joyful in what I already have right now.
Yeah.
I don't need more to make me content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the wheels aren't all going to fall off if I stop working for a day.
Absolutely.
Sabbath
there
is
is a sense of relinquishing of control.
Yeah, like I think Sabbath is a huge. Sabbath has a huge component of trust.
Yeah.
Oh, huge.
Surrender.
I think, like, speak to that
Right.
because I can think of a plethora of business owners that are like, but if I didn't answer the phone, if I don't do that,
Right.
you know, and then
Yep.
they have a whole lot of things that would happen if they don't do that.
Like like God doesn't fall off
Yeah.
the throne if I stop working. God's still on the throne.
That's right.
God's still making the world turn around. Like I don't have to. If God brought Sabbath into the rhythm of healthy life, then me working an extra day on that day, which should be Sabbath, is going to be detrimental to me in some way.
I'm thinking back to what I just said, and I guess there's some practical things to put. You and I have both done some journeys around practical stuff because to just
sure.
up stumps and be like, I'm not going to be on.
Yeah.
Just hey everyone, just so you know, I'm now, going from being fully contactable to I'm totally not. That's not
Right.
That's not going to go well for a
But
business owner.
that's what
not
you
gonna
talk
go
about,
well.
like pushing the walls out of the room, making a room.
Yes.
Start with a few hours.
Start with a few hours. Start with communicating. Start with developing someone to just manage 5 of your emails on the day that you're going to have this component in your work. Like you've got to build to this.
Yes.
If you're in a place where it's not functioning at all at the moment.
Yes.
Don't just go, whoop.
Cold turkey.
Well, I think about businesses that require like sales or contract or what have you.
Yeah.
To just immediately be like, well, I'm not. There is going to be an impact. Accessibility bridge is you have to work this into your world.
Yeah.
We're not like the model of obviously God. He instituted it at the beginning. None of us have instituted this at the beginning of our life. As guys, we are so purpose driven. The idea of rest challenges us. But Jesus, being a model of masculinity, he takes a Sabbath, right? He gets away. He has constructed rhythm.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of rhythm is super important to talk about.
Very good.
In the context of this, because we are talking about balancing a moment of stopping to enjoy versus a portion of live or the rest of being on mission.
Yeah.
And so I would say that a model or a healthy masculinity, true masculinity, operates at life with rhythm. They are on
Healthy
purpose, like we talked about last pod, and they know how to stop and enjoy. They know how to teach their family to stop and enjoy. I'm confronted all the time with what culture am I indoctrinating my kids with when they see me just going all the time.
Right.
That I never stop and enjoy. I don't teach them to stop and enjoy. And I'm not talking about, letting them have screen time. That's an escape.
Hey, good scream time though.
Screen time. Screen time's great.
I love a bit of screen
time's
time.
Love a bit of screen. So do you not let your kids have screen time on Sabbath? Like
our kids are at school when Rachel. So
you Sabbath on a Friday, right?
So Rachel and I Sabbath on a Friday.
Okay.
Most Fridays. I don't want to project this. We've got this all together.
Sure.
Work in progress. If I was to talk about what an ideal version of our Sabbath looks like, and this is over a period of asking questions, particularly hard questions of why. Because the biggest answer I get around Sabbath from people is, I can't. Why?
Yeah.
I just need to do the why. Why do you need to do that? Now, there may be a fairly legitimate answer to that. And so it's, can you move that to another time?
Right.
Because you can't not do that. So let's talk about, can that be moved? Or what I have to, and then there's some things where actually what you think you have to do, you don't have to do.
Yes.
Oh, but I have to mow the lawn. Why? Because then it's messy. So, is there a value that's speaking to you about having your lawn pristine in front of your like this journey forces you
Yes.
to ask why you think you need what you need. And I think as men, that is very, very important journey to take on because we are modeling that for our kids.
So the journey towards Sabbath is
I think
also,
I reckon,
yes,
I really
it's
like
great.
the journey, the idea of journey into Sabbath because for some guys it could take them a slow adjustment of many things over like a 5 to 10 year period.
It totally
right?
could.
But
That's
it might
right.
mean that 30 years down the track, they're more healthy
Yes.
than they would be without.
right.
It's like, oh, well, it took 10 years. Yeah, but it meant that 30 years' time,
Absolutely.
you're super healthy.
Imagine
your family's
what an
healthy.
epic, grandparent you'll be. 'Cause
soul's
you're
healthy.
Or, like we've got to think generationally.
Right.
But coming back, so my ideal Sabbath is wake up in the morning and take the kids to school, drop off 2 of our kids. So Oakley's not at school yet. Fortnightly, my mum has him, but every fortnight he's at home with Rach and I.
Yep.
And our number one foundation is to enjoy who God's given us
Great.
and what God's given us. So that means we've made a list of all sorts of
God gave me
things.
this massive flat screen TV.
That's not out of consideration.
Out of the ballpark. Right.
But we have a whole list of really practicals because you say, just do activities that are about enjoying. Like, that's so ethereal.
Totally.
We actually sat down and we're like, what is a way to enjoy our home or backyard or each other?
Yes.
So how do we just enjoy being with each other? For not me and you, like me and Rach.
Well, I thought you were going to sex there, so you're going to talk about that.
John Mark Comer talks about that in his book.
He does.
Like, that is a beautiful enjoyment of
Absolutely.
our marriage.
Absolutely.
And it's a part of their Sabbath. But
primary reason for Sabbath taking, boys.
I think
All the men are like, I'm getting on board with the Sabbath thing.
I'm regular Sabbath. I'm a regular Sabbath. Instituting regular Sabbath.
That's all they needed to hear. That's all they needed to hear. Like all the stuff the last
Business
30 minutes.
leaders,
Is,
we just wasted like 60 minutes.
Any of the
We could have just said, guys,
you have now given me a
have
good
sex
reason.
on the Sabbath.
They don't need the
and
spirit of revelation.
Husbands only are cheering right now.
So anyway.
Oh, jeez.
But when our kids come home from school, we have made Friday night family night.
Yeah, I love that.
So no, they don't get their regular screen time in the way that they would on, say, like a Wednesday or a Thursday, which it is a form of like, okay, escape from the day. Just
and from
engage,
each other
have a little
bit.
moment. Yep. But no, this is about enjoying each other. We make popcorn. We have a special type of dinner because Rach doesn't like to cook an entire meal. That feels like work for her.
Hello, Kuzma.
And so we'll either get a meal out of the freezer, just warm it up. Different, and that comes back to that list.
Right.
What is work? Yes, mowing the lawn for me, it feels like a working of the chaos into order. But tinkering in my garden, I actually really enjoy that. So some things can be a bit grey. Yeah, some things can be a bit grey. It's not always clean and it's personal. So this is the journey you have to go on.
Yeah, I love it.
To start to give yourself some boundary. We don't always do the whole of Sabbath together either because we like to do some different things.
Totally.
Like we'll take running, for instance, as well. There's a big difference for me between like a pursuit of running to get a certain body, that's a work that I want to rest
Or
from.
to prepare for a race.
Yeah.
Is that the work to you?
Yes, because that has a pressure, that has like I'm working.
Okay.
But going for a run because I just enjoy being out in nature and running and I enjoy that. So that's a grey space. But we would tend to spend time together. We might go down to the beach together, Rach and I, have an acai bowl, like share that, like just enjoy being together, enjoy food.
That's awesome.
Enjoy our home. I won't do any renovation-ish jobs.
Right.
And I have had to learn to be okay and to be content sitting in a room that might have a hole in the wall because I've chosen right now, I'm going to be okay that there's a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
I'm not chasing perfection. I've got a beautiful home. I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, great.
That challenges people because they're like, well, what if the hole never gets filled? What if you don't have the time to fill it? Great question. What if it never gets filled? Are you okay with that?
Can you be content?
Can you be okay?
There you go.
I think that's the core of it, isn't it? Really.
And that's why
A big
Sabbath
core of it's
gets to the deep stuff.
Can you be content right now?
Yeah.
With what you have.
Without doing more, being more, or having more. Like, can you be content right now? You know?
Because the argument against this so often is I have to. There's always, and it comes something after
So
that.
true.
I should.
And I would have been the biggest proponent of that, you know, because I'm like, I used to be like, oh, I'm great. I don't take emails during the weekend. You know, I close my laptop. I'm good.
Therefore,
And then I
I'm
would
resting
go and
deeply in my soul.
Flog myself trying to do all of this stuff that was still
Right.
kind of spiritual work in an odd way. You know, I'm trying to beautify my home. I'm trying to level up our life. I'm trying to do this and do that and all these things. And I was finding that it's like, I'm not rested. I was finding I don't feel like I ever get a chance to enjoy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the challenge came when we got this beautiful home. And I'm like, I just, like, when are we actually enjoying what we've got rather than this continual striving for more all the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love this because also what we're doing is we're enabling and empowering the listeners to ask questions.
Yes.
What is work to me? You've just described a whole bunch of stuff that's okay for you because it's not work, and a whole bunch of stuff that feels to me like effort and pressure and work and not enjoyment. I'm moving towards some kind of a goal here. And this is awesome for the listeners because they're like, what is that for me? What is work for me and my family or me and my spouse? How do we rest well in our Sabbath, whether that's a Saturday, Sunday, Friday, another day off or whatever? How can we Sabbath well? How can we enjoy each other, enjoy what we have without that constant striving for more, and simply be grateful and content with this? And I love how you talked about, you know, the different ways that you want to connect with your family. Yeah, that's so powerful because like our best Sabbaths are when I've deliberately turned my phone off or put it away, and I will go out for coffee with my wife and my daughter, and we just hang out and chat. I don't have a time limit. Yeah. I'm not like rushing to the next thing. I don't have something to be at or something to go to.
It's beautiful.
It's slow. It's purposeful. Like purposeful in a restful way. Not purposeful in okay, I got 5 minutes with you and 10 minutes with you, and then I've done my job. I've Sabbath so hard. It's intentional. No, actually, yes.
Intentional enjoying of the people that are in your world.
Right.
It's an active
like I know
rest.
John Mark Comer talks about they love having people over to their home.
Yeah, see that's
now that might not work for everybody.
So that might be tiring for someone.
Yeah,
you know. So it is really unique.
Wife.
Like get the right people. You know, like some people you still feel that pressure to beautify your home, but then there's some people that it's like no, you are. I'm so comfortable with you. We'll get some pizzas. Like this is enjoying some of the best people God's put in my world.
People who are good for your soul.
That's right.
Great
friends,
food, great conversation, and you leave just filled.
Yeah, that's right. You're full. Not just of all the pizza I just ate.
That too. But
I love
good.
pizza. I mean,
pizza's good.
But
I think my Sabbath day will just, if I was to design my perfect Sabbath day, is just eating pizza. You know,
breakfast pizza,
sit there eating pizza,
lunch pizza.
I don't know. I'd get sick of pizza pretty quickly.
Burrito, rolled up pizza.
This has been a great conversation. I think there's like 2 books that we've got. That
Absolutely.
There's so much to say on the topic, but I've got a couple of scriptures. Just to sum up Sabbath, I think we'll sum up the idea of Sabbath. There's a great scripture in Matthew 16:26. It says, "For what is a man profited if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul?" And I think that it sums up why Sabbath or rest, soul rest. Yeah, and Sabbath is an important key ingredient to our spiritual life, and for men. You know, we've been talking about healthy spirituality, healthy masculinity, true and healthy masculinity on this podcast. Men, it's healthy to pause and learn to be content. Yes. Because you can gain the whole world and lose your soul, you know, and it really kind of reorders and helps us with our priorities.
Well said, Jesus.
Did
Yeah,
say
good one,
some
G.
good
There's
stuff.
another quote from David Thoreau, which you probably heard before. It says, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." How crazy powerful is that?
Yeah.
I think of like Frodo in The Lord of the Rings when he says to Samwise, he says, "I feel thin." You know,
He was thin.
I mean, yeah, but
Frodo's
he's talking about
like-
his soul. He's
He
talking
wasn't
about
as thin as Gollum.
Samwise.
I'm sorry.
Samwise, can I have another piece of that magical
There's a
bread?
part of me that wants to punch Frodo in the face.
All right, okay.
There is.
This conversation's not
He's
about
like,
Frodo.
he's like,
This
you
conversation-
poor Frodo. Sam's like carrying him on his shoulder. I'm like, Sam's the hero.
Sam was true. He
Frodo-
wasn't
Hey,
carrying the
Frodo
ring in his
enjoyed
pocket.
it.
So weak and
Because of the ring. The
of
weight
the ring.
The weight of purpose. All right, this is not a
we're way off track.
my point being, like, if anyone listening to this podcast resonates with these kind of things that I've just shared about, like this scripture and this quote, I think start looking into Sabbath.
Great.
Yeah.
Look into
Yeah.
Sabbath. It
good.
was made, God made it. It's like God made it to help us. And I think
Right.
it's worth having a look, checking it out.
Absolutely.
Could really be beneficial to you. There's so much to be said on the topic. We would not have covered it. I think we only scratched the surface, and it was kind of like an introductory conversation. But it's really, as healthy men are on purpose, but
Yeah.
we wanted to couple
Men know how to
Sabbath and rest with that because
right.
we can get carried away and unhealthy sometimes in that
Yeah.
that kind of driven life. So I think that's really important. Great conversation.
Loved it.
John Mark Comer's Ruthless, Elimination. Oh, hurry, great resource. Get on that if you want to get into it. I think it's really easy to read. And
Yeah, it is.
catch you in the next pod.
Pete Scazzero writes
Pete Scazzero.
good stuff too.
He does a bit more. It's a bit more like,
His emotionally healthy stuff is brilliant.
yeah, it's brilliant.
EHS.
This
Get
is
it.
more introductory. I'd go from this first,
Yep.
then
Yes.
Pete Scazzero, I think, would be my
Good.
recommendation. But thanks for the conversation.
Thanks, man.
And
great.
we'll see you in the next pod.